Thank you, Madam President. Whew. I thought there would be a very few people say a very few words. First, I want to say thank you to Diane. In 2002, my employer sent me to this building, and I realized pretty quickly, I really want to do this someday. And I started talking with Diane in 2002. I'd really like to run for the State House someday. And she's been supportive of that the whole way. I want to say thank you to Victor and Carson, our sons, who've walked precincts and were patient as I was making fundraising calls. They were patient after I was elected. I'm going to try to get through this without even touching that. But I'm sure you all have experienced this too if you have kids, but to go out and just do some shopping errands, go to the grocery store, go to Home Depot or Lowe's. And it wasn't very long after I was elected to the House that people would say, "Oh, Representative Holbert." And they want to talk about something here, but more likely they want to talk about something in Washington, D.C. that we have absolutely nothing to do with. And those conversations might take 15 or 20 minutes, but my sons would probably say 2 or 3 times that time. They used to like to go around and run errands with me, and then they got to the point where they didn't really want to do that because that happened just about every time we were out. But Victor, Carson, love you. Thank you. And then I want to say thank you to my best friend and my mentor, Ted Harvey, who kind of wrapped his arms around me my first year here, 2002. That was his first year as a member. He came in on a vacancy election. Joe Nunez passed away. Ted was a former reader of the State House of Representatives. Diane's brother John is a former reader of the State House of Representatives. Kind of odd curiosity, but something in common. But Ted, during his first session, 2002, he and I became friends. And by June of that year, after Sine Die, he called up and said, "Come down to my office." Why? I said, "I got something to show you." He had an office down in Castle Rock, and I drove down to Castle Rock, and he had this big dot matrix page from one of those old printers. And it was the voter registration data for the 3 House districts that were in Douglas County at the time. And he said, "This is why you should move to Douglas County." And I'm like, I need to go home and tell Diane we're moving to Douglas County because the data was way better than it was in Arapahoe County where we lived. Friday after Thanksgiving 2002, we bought our empty lot and built our house. June 2003, we moved in, spent 8 years working in the party, supporting Mike May as my state representative, and then I got to run for it in 2010, and here I am. I want to say thank you to Carrie Ebel. We were district captains together back in those days. Carrie worked over at Colorado Christian University and the Centennial Institute. For my former state senator, the president of the Senate, John Andrews, and for a man by the name of Bill Armstrong. Senator Bill Armstrong. Bill was a member of the association that I managed, and I've talked before that he taught me to come to attention while sitting in my office chair. He would call me at CMLA, and I'd pick up the phone, and "Chris, Bill Armstrong," and I'd say, "Yes, sir." That relationship offered an open door to allow me to meet people here like then Senator Doug Lamborn, and Senator Marilyn Musgrave, her name is over here, and Majority Leader Mark Hillman. It was an honor to work for my friend and former chair of Douglas County Republicans, Mark Scheffel, when he ran for Senate. His name is right there. Bill Armstrong is right there, Mark Hillman. And for those of you who get to come stand in this well and speak, Cindy tells me that yes, because I'll be here tomorrow, I get my name there where their names are. Pretty cool. Dyslexia is a frustrating learning disability. I want to take you back to the fall of 1968, my second grade class. My teacher was concerned. She asked my parents to come in for a conference. I was sitting at a desk with a piece of paper in front of me with writing on it in pencil, and a lot of red marks. My second grade teacher was standing there next to my mom and my dad. The fluorescent lights of that classroom at Harbor View Elementary School in Juneau, Alaska. And 11 years before Pink Floyd, The Wall came out, my teacher said something that's very reminiscent of the line in the Wall. It says, "How can you have your pudding if you don't eat your meat?" My teacher, with all the right intentions, looked down and shared the advice with my mom and dad. "Chris, you have such potential if you would only learn to focus." My mother took that advice to heart. She knew I had an unusual brain because before I was 3 years old, I would give her driving directions. That way, go there. She knew I had this video recorder going on, but she also understood that I wrote my capital B, or my lowercase b's and d's backwards and my p's and q's upside down. 2s and 3s were especially hard. Chris, you have such potential if you'd only learn to focus. Shift a little bit. My second senior year in college, the 5-year plan, because that's how long it took me. I know Bob had to go to law school twice, but it took me 5 years to get my bachelor's degree. I was blessed to have a professor who taught 18th century literature. Anybody love 18th century literature? How about Alexander Pope? Kenneth back here. Anyone know the name Alexander Pope? He's apparently the second most quoted English satirist or poet, second only to William Shakespeare. I couldn't learn Pope by reading it because of my dyslexia, but a professor took time to talk about it, to explain it. Alexander Pope was the Babylon Bee of 18th century England. He made fun of royalty, members of parliament, the media, business people. It was fascinating. Pope wrote this line, and it changed my life. Observe what system into systems run, what other planets circle other suns. My teacher gave me this advice, and as a dyslexic, I had chronic daydream, distraction, always looking around, trying to find more stimulus to keep this busy mind occupied. Observe what system into systems run, what other planets circle other suns. In 2002, my employer was doing very well at the Colorado Mortgage Lenders Association, managing that association, but they said, "Chris, we want you to take over government relations. Go down and work with Evan at the Capitol." I didn't know what was about to happen, but in 2002, I walked into this beautiful place, and my mind opened up like a giant flower or a radio telescope. My mom taught me that dyslexia is my superpower. I learned slowly by reading. The first time I chaired the Committee of the Whole in the House, and this, Cindy, I think you can vouch for me, the first time I chaired the Committee of the Whole here, the chief clerk and then the Secretary of Senate brought me the chairman's handbook and said, "Here." And I said, "Oh, no, I don't need that." "Well, how do you know what to say?" I've stood out here for 7 years and listened. I've got it all recorded. I know what to do. And I think both Marilyn and Cindy were, after I got out of the chair the first time, I was like, wow. My employer sent me here, and I spent that first session in 2002 at Evan's encouragement standing up on the 3rd floor observing your predecessors, our predecessors, the lobby. Understanding you come in the morning, you go to committees upstairs, the House comes in, and they go downstairs watching the lobbyists move around. For 20 years, my dyslexic brain has absorbed information about the people and this place and policy. Thank you for all the speeches that you've given here in the well, whether we disagreed or agreed, and the legislative process. I've been so stimulated here in this building, and the hard thing tonight is, I admit to you, I've never experienced stage fright. Not once. But I know what it feels like because I have this apprehension, this tension in my chest, maybe a little bit of fear. Why? I'm going to try to do it without touching the tissue. My dyslexic brain learns at a voluminous pace by seeing and hearing and doing. And the 34 of you have been my teachers, whether you knew it or not. Whether you believe it or not, almost every word you've said here went in here and stuck. Tim, our chief of staff, has commented, how do you remember all that? I recite a conversation from weeks ago. That's my dyslexic brain. And the challenge that I have as we move forward, I won't be here after tomorrow as a member in General Assembly. Where else am I going to go that teaches so much, so consistently? I'm afraid I might be stuck somewhere having to focus. I don't learn well focusing. I complimented the members of JBC on the long bill that you all have the ability to sit quietly and focus and absorb huge amounts of information by focusing. I absorb huge amounts of information by observing. What legislators circle other legislators? What policies are at play? Pope made that observation in 18th century England when people were still struggling with the reality that Galileo was right. They wanted to believe that the earth was flat, that the sun rotated around us. And Pope was daring the Babylon Bee of his time. Observe what system into systems run, what other planets circle other suns. But it has been an inspiration to me to observe all of you and learn from you. And that's not stage fright, but separation anxiety, loneliness. I won't be lonely because we're about to go on a great adventure. We're empty nesters and we're going to move to Florida. And there is no one in this world, no one on the planet I would rather spend the rest of my life with than Diane. She walked into a room almost 39 years ago, and it was as though my soul was for the first time made whole. And I get the bragging rights. Senator Coleman said I was making it up. She proposed to me. Mr. President, thank you so much for your time. I thought this would take less. I am honored by your kind words, your friendship, and please believe me, I will miss our staff. Thank you, Cindy, your staff, the sergeants, the State Patrol, Chris, and everyone who polishes the brass out there. Be kind to those people. Say hi. Encourage them. Thank them. Father God, thank you for calling me here. Thank you for hearing my prayer. You made me something, a representative, a senator, the majority leader, just like Bill Armstrong and Mark Scheffel, Mark Hillman. Colleagues, I will miss you terribly. You are all friends. Thank you for being teachers in my life. Thank you.